Okay, we are going to make another impromptu gospel discussion video with Mike. So the subject of our dinner conversation today was about the Trinity. Someone at church was talking about pastor of another church accusing our church of not being Christian because we don't believe in the same Trinity that they believe in. So I was listening to Mike talk about the Nicene Creed. Is that, or are you talking about just the Council of Nicaea?
Well, the Council of Nicaea that developed the Nicene Creed.
Well, anyway, he's going to tell us about how the churches came to all be unified in their belief of the Trinity.
Well, so the big problem around that time, so the Nicea, the Council of Nicaea, how long do you want me to? I don't know how long you want me. If you get me started, I'll go on for an hour.
We'll start where you were starting with me about how it came to be, why they met together.
Oh, so why they met together? So the bishops at that time were teaching different things about the nature of Christ and how he related to God, his Father. Were they separate or were they together? Were they one? And Constantine, who was the first emperor who was Christian, he saw this division and he said, well, if this is going to be our religion for the empire, we need to have a unified, at least we need to be unified on this. We need to know, is it one or is it three? And so he convened the Council of Nicaea, which is your first problem, is that the bishops didn't convene it. Bishops, I mean, they were, the bishops amongst the different cities and nations had different ideas. And so there's your first problem, is that it was convened by an emperor and
not a religious leader.
And not by a bishop and not by a religious leader. And he was the one who dictated and said, this is what you must decide. And so Nicaea was a little bit just south of Istanbul, or Constantinople at the time. And he, that's where his summer home was, and he called together about 300 bishops. It's kind of easy to remember. It happened in 325, and about 300 bishops. There's some dispute about exactly how many was there. One interesting thing about it is the bishop of Myra was there, and the bishop of Myra is the Bishop Nicholas, Saint Nicholas. He was one of the famous people, probably the most famous. He wasn't famous back then, but he's famous now. And so he said, okay, you guys have to decide, is it one or is it three? And so they debated for quite a while, and they came up with the Nicene Creed. And the interesting thing about the Nicene Creed is that at the time, it actually didn't have as much, it wasn't as solid as people think it is now. It was more of a compromise. And in fact...
well, didn't you also say that the emperor didn't even really care what they decided?
Oh, yeah.
He just said pick one so that we can be unified?
Yeah,
it wasn't like divine revelation.
You guys vote on this, pick one, fight back and forth, but you have to come out with one thing that we can all say. And in fact, I won't get, we'll have to see how much time we have.
Okay, we'll come back to that.
Post-Nicene Creed. Mm-hmm. But definitely I want to come to the Council of Sirmium, because that's really important at the end. And so the Nicene Creed is actually interesting because it is a compromise. And it really is, Mormons could say, hey, I support the Nicene Creed, because it's really a bland compromise, mostly is what it was at the beginning, so everybody could at least agree to it.
So the Nicene Creed is all the points that they decided on?
It was, you could call it a pledge, but yeah, you could say points. And there's 2 points in it so there's one point in it that says, I believe in the Holy Catholic Church, which remembering that back then Catholic just meant universal. It was not the name of the church, just meant universal.
Because practically the whole world was a
they
member
were all
of the church, so they just called it Catholic.
Which meant universal, everybody's church. And the only point that a Mormon might have trouble with is the point where it says that they are consubstantial. And
That the Trinity is
the
consubstantial?
Trinity is
Okay.
consubstantial, meaning that they are all of the same substance. And not that, well, like you see that piece of bread over there, it's not, if you have two pieces of bread, well, they're all made of the same bread, but actually consubstantial to them, that didn't mean, hey, all three of these pieces of bread are made of the same thing. I mean, that they're all one thing.
That they are all one.
That they are all one. And that was debated on actually what exactly that meant. And the hard part was a lot of bishops didn't want to agree to that because consubstantial is not in the scriptures at all, anywhere, or anything like it. So the first problem with it is that they're saying something that is out that Jesus never said. Did he say, I and my Father are one? Yes. Did he say that if you've seen me, you've seen the Father? Yes. Did he say everything? I don't do anything that I haven't seen my Father do? Yes. But did he ever say we're all made of the same stuff, or we're all the same? We're all one gelatinous thing? No, he did not say that. And so it was actually a little bit of a sticking point. In fact, so that's why I do have. So this is kind of important. So what that they are three separate beings. Sometimes you might hear people say that Arianism was argued at the Council of Nicaea, and it kind of was, but there was nobody who was full Arian, and we won't talk about what Arius, that's a presbyter, he was the name of a presbyter, what exactly his beliefs were, because it's not really that important. But semi-Arian beliefs, so semi-Arian means that they were three. So the semi-Arian belief is that they were three different people. And so even after the Council of Nicaea, the semi-Arian beliefs continued on. They kept going. No, the people who are semi-Arian, thinking that they were three separate people, they continued. It was not really that big of a deal to them. And in fact, Constantius, not Constantine, so Constantine is the emperor during the Council of Nicaea. Constantius was a later emperor who was also semi-Arian. Is this going on too long?
No.
I'm
just distracted by the birds out the window.
It was semi-Arian as well, believing that they were three separate people. So later was the council, and in fact, it's funny that today's Christians say you must believe in the Council of Nicaea. Well, the Council of Nicaea does, you definitely could said, hey, these are three in one. They're all three together. But the Council of Sirmium, specifically the Third Council of Sirmium, which is where the Sirmium Creed came from. There's actually 5 councils of Sirmium. The Third Council of Sirmium, which the Pope was at, by the way, the Pope was not at the Council of Nicaea. The Pope was at the Third Council of Nicaea, which actually did have fewer bishops than the Council of Nicaea did. They came up with the Sirmium Creed. And the Sirmium Creed, which was called the Semi-Arian Creed, which was later called, what did they call it? The heretical, no, they named it something even worse than the heretical creed. It's got a funny name, you gotta look it up. The third, and so because it was Semi-Arian saying that they're separate, that they are, and so if we, so again, the dumb thing is if you say we have to subscribe to the Council of Nicaea or the Nicene Creed, why do you say we have to subscribe to that one and not the Sirmium Creed from the Third Council of Sirmium? So, there's a few things that come from this. Number one is we can surely say that it wasn't inspired by God, because if it was inspired by God, then the Sirmium Creed was also inspired by God. If you're going to say that the Nicene Creed was from God, then you actually also have to say that the Sirmium Creed was inspired by God. And no, it doesn't hold near as much weight as people think it does. It didn't hold weight back then. Again, the semi-Aryans still kept believing there were semi-Aryan churches that had pictures of them all separate back then. The semi-Aryan, well, long story. But no, it was not inspired by God. It was some guys get together. The emperor said, pick one. I don't care which one you pick, but pick one, gosh darn it. And so no, it wasn't inspired by God. It was just some guys get together and vote, and